Rain struck the kitchen windows like a warning. Outside, the trees bent in protest under the weight of the wind, but inside the house, everything was too quiet. Elena moved with practiced grace, deliberate, careful, her fingers trembling just slightly as she placed 2 glasses of orange juice on the marble island. The smell of fresh citrus floated in the air, masking the tension thick enough to choke on. Her right wrist throbbed from the bruise hidden beneath her sleeve. She didn't touch it. Pain, she had learned, was best ignored when survival demanded silence. She heard him before she saw him. The slow creak of his loafers on hardwood, the shift in air when he entered the room. Travis. He looked freshly shaven, neatly dressed in his usual morning routine uniform. Pressed slacks, navy shirt rolled up at the cuffs. Handsome, polished. Everything about him said success. But Eleanor knew better. Monsters didn't always roar. Sometimes they smiled. "Good morning, sweetheart," he said, voice smooth as silk. She smiled back, lips tight. "Morning." His eyes drifted to the glasses. "Juice? You said you wanted something fresh today." He walked toward her slowly, like a lion circling prey. She saw his gaze flicker. Too fast, but not fast enough. His eyes were on the right glass, the one closest to her. Something in her chest went cold. She picked up her glass, pretending not to notice the tiny, unnatural swirl at the bottom, a glint that hadn't been there moments before. She almost drank. Almost. Instead, with a gentle laugh, she turned, just as footsteps echoed from the hallway. "Rachel's up," she said breezily. Rachel entered, her dark hair tied messily, still wearing her nurse scrubs from the night shift. "Oh, I need sugar," Rachel groaned, stretching. "Is that juice for me?" Without missing a beat, Elena pivoted and handed Rachel the other glass, the one Travis hadn't expected her to give away. Rachel smiled and took it. "You're a lifesaver." Travis blinked, once, then again. He was still smiling, but his posture changed, just slightly. Elena saw it. So did Rachel, but she misread it. Rachel drank, one sip, then another. The glass landed on the counter with a soft clink. Travis said nothing. His hand twitched. Elena didn't breathe, and somewhere deep inside her something shifted. A thread of fear snapped, replaced by something colder, sharper. Rachel frowned. Her hand went to her forehead, and then fade to black. What happens next will haunt everyone forever. 8 years ago, Elena thought she had finally found safety. Travis had entered her life like a rescue story, tall, capable, and endlessly attentive at a time when she needed it most. Her mother had just passed after a long, painful illness, and Elena, then a 26-year-old high school literature teacher, was raw with grief and desperate for connection. Travis was magnetic, a self-made man with his own construction business, a wide smile, and eyes that made promises. He listened, made her feel seen, protected, loved. They were married within the year, but safety turned into silence, and love soured into control. It started small, little comments about her friends being a bad influence, suggestions that she should take a break from work to focus on their future, critiques wrapped in concern. Eventually, Elena stopped seeing her colleagues. Then her college friends drifted. When she quit her job, Travis said he was proud of her. "You deserve rest. Let me take care of everything." She believed him. But slowly, the walls closed in. He monitored her calls, criticized her appearance, made her question her memory. Some days, he was kind, bought her flowers, cooked dinner. Other days, he'd disappear for hours and return with cold, quiet rage. The bruises never showed, but the pain did. And yet, she stayed. Part of her always hoped he'd go back to the man he was at the beginning. He never did. Instead, he got better at hiding, better at smiling for neighbors and joking with the mailman, better at making her feel like she was the problem. But Elena wasn't blind anymore, especially not after what she heard 2 weeks ago. She'd gotten up in the middle of the night to get a glass of water and found Travis on the phone in the study. His voice was low, calculated. "I'm telling you, she's getting suspicious." "No, not yet. I'll handle it." Permanently, the blood drained from her face. She stood there in the dark, heart racing, trying to convince herself it wasn't what it sounded like, but she knew better. Then there was Rachel. Travis's younger sister, sharp-tongued and fiercely independent, had arrived unexpectedly 3 weeks ago, suitcase in one hand, heartbreak in the other. Her long-term boyfriend had cheated, and she needed a place to land. Travis welcomed her, but not warmly. He said yes with his mouth and no with his eyes. Rachel had always been loyal to her brother, She believed in family, even when it hurt. But she wasn't blind either. She noticed how Eleanor flinched sometimes when Travis walked too close. Noticed how Eleanor waited for permission before speaking at dinner. Noticed, too, that Travis always had a reason to disappear. Client emergencies, late payments, work stress. She started asking quiet questions. Eleanor answered them with careful silences, until one night, over wine, the dam broke. "He wasn't always like this," Eleanor whispered. Rachel sat beside her, frowning. "I'm not sure that's true." Since that night, a fragile understanding had formed between them. Eleanor didn't trust easily anymore, but Rachel had become something like an ally. Travis hated it. He never said so directly, but his tone sharpened when he spoke to Rachel. His hands curled a little tighter around his glass when she laughed too loud. Once, Eleanor caught him staring at Rachel with something between irritation and calculation. And now Rachel had sipped the juice that wasn't meant for her, the one with something strange at the bottom, something meant for Elena. Elena sat in that kitchen every morning, carefully curated, quietly unraveling. Her world was a gilded cage, a beautiful house, manicured lawn, new appliances, but she had no key, no job, no money of her own, no way out, just fear, and now, knowledge. Travis had secrets. Big ones, financial ones, credit card statements she wasn't supposed to see, bank withdrawals he couldn't explain, rumors about deals that never happened. And Elena had started keeping records, notes hidden in the lining of her old winter coat, voice memos on a burner phone Rachel didn't know about, quiet things, just in case. Now, with Rachel sick upstairs, face pale, pulse racing, Eleanor knew two things with certainty. One, Travis hadn't meant for Rachel to drink that juice. And two, if Eleanor didn't move fast, she might be next. The storm outside was just beginning, but inside, Eleanor felt something else rising. Not fear, not anymore, resolve. It was almost midnight when Elena padded softly into the kitchen, drawn by something she couldn't explain. Restless, unable to sleep, she found herself opening drawers, looking for, she didn't even know what. Then she noticed the trash wasn't fully closed. She pulled it open. Buried beneath a paper towel and the remains of yesterday's pasta was a small glass bottle with no label, only a faint chemical smell that turned her stomach. Her fingers trembled as she pulled it out, using the corner of her sleeve. She took it to her phone and began searching. The shape, the color of the residue, the faint smell. It matched a chemical compound she'd never heard of until now. Carbofuran, a fast-acting neurotoxin, banned in many places, lethal in microdoses, tasteless, odorless, and commonly used to poison animals or people. Her legs gave out beneath her. She sat on the cold kitchen tiles, the phone still glowing in her hand. He was really going to do it. Not just scare her, not just hurt her, kill her. When Travis came in 15 minutes later, shirtless, rubbing his eyes like he'd just woken up, Eleanor stood calmly by the sink, rinsing her hands. The bottle was hidden behind the dish soap. He squinted. "You okay?" Eleanor forced a soft smile. "Just couldn't sleep. Was cleaning up." His gaze drifted toward the trash. Then to her. "You look tense." She shrugged. "I found something weird. A bottle. Smelled like chemicals." He chuckled. "Paranoia much? Probably just one of my old pesticide samples. You know I keep stuff from job sites. Don't go all CSI on me." Eleanor smiled again. Of course. But she didn't believe a word, and neither did her instincts. That night, she lay in bed with her back to him, wide awake, while his breathing grew steady behind her. Around 3:12 a.m., she heard the whisper of his voice from the hallway, on the phone again. "It'll be quick. She won't feel a thing. I'll call you after." He didn't say her name. He didn't have to. The next morning, Eleanor didn't cry. She didn't panic, didn't run. She went quiet inside, the way a woman does when her world has gone fully cold, and she realizes the only way to survive is to stop reacting and start planning. She waited until he left to take a call in the garage. Then she turned her phone camera on, propped it behind a stack of cookbooks, pointed at the kitchen table, silent, steady. She made breakfast, 2 plates, 2 glasses of orange juice. When Travis returned, his smile was easy, too easy. "Good morning, babe," he said, placing a hand on her lower back and brushing his lips against her cheek. His affection made her skin crawl. She moved slowly, just enough to see him, enough to catch it. As she turned to put the plates on the table, he picked up her glass and poured something in from a tiny vial, quick as lightning. Then he stirred it with the spoon. "Eleanor," he said sweetly, "come sit." She didn't answer. Not yet. Instead, she set the plates down and then, without hesitation, picked up both glasses and switched them. He didn't see it. Rachel walked in then, still in pajama pants, hair tied up, rubbing sleep from her eyes. "Morning," she mumbled. Eleanor hesitated, but not long. She placed the doctored glass in front of Rachel, then sat beside Travis and waited. Rachel took a sip without thinking. Seconds passed, then minutes. Rachel blinked rapidly. "That juice tastes funny." Travis turned sharply. Eleanor watched his eyes. He froze. His smile faltered. His hand tensed on the fork. His entire body stilled. "Funny how?" he asked, too quickly. Rachel swayed a little. "Dizzy." That's when Travis stood up. "Eleanor, what did you—" But Eleanor was already holding up her phone, the screen facing him, the red recording light blinking. "Sit down, Travis," she said, her voice steady. He did not. Not yet. But something in her tone made him hesitate. Rachel's hand reached for the counter, confused. "What's happening?" Travis's eyes darted to the back door. Elena didn't blink. She wasn't the target, was she? Travis's mouth opened, but no sound came, because now Rachel was looking at him too, and her dizziness wasn't just from the juice. It was from realization, from connecting the dots, from seeing who her brother really was. And in that single, horrifying moment, the game changed. Elena's scream shattered the quiet morning. "Help! Someone help me!" Her voice cut through the air, sharp and raw, filled with something ancient and primal. Survival. She ran to the landline phone, her fingers slipping as she dialed 911. Travis lunged, grabbing her arm mid-call, but Elena twisted free, her voice already screaming into the receiver. "My sister-in-law's been poisoned. Please, send help." Travis tried to yank the phone away, but Elena shoved the ceramic bowl off the counter. It crashed to the floor. The noise was enough to turn heads outside. Next door, a window creaked open. A neighbor peeked out. Good. Let them see. Let them hear. Within minutes, sirens howled down the street. Travis stepped back, breathing hard, trying to fix his face into one of concern. She's sick," he told the paramedics, hovering beside the limp Rachel on the couch. "Maybe food poisoning, or maybe the juice went bad. I bought it days ago." Eleanor said nothing. She stood in the corner, arms wrapped around herself, watching them work. Rachel's lips were pale, her pupils sluggish. She was slipping fast. The EMTs moved fast, loading her into the ambulance. "Do you want to ride with her?" one of them asked Elena. Before she could answer, Travis jumped in. "We're fine. I'm her brother." But Elena stepped forward. "I'm going." He looked at her, really looked, and saw something in her face he hadn't seen in a long time. Certainty. She didn't ask. She followed them into the ambulance and didn't look back. At the hospital, under the harsh fluorescent lights of the ER, Eleanor waited while doctors stabilized Rachel. Nurses moved around her, but she was already digging into her purse. A small USB drive. She handed it to a nurse with trembling fingers. "Please, give this to the police. Tell them it's important. Tell them I'm not crazy." The nurse gave her a look of compassion, not pity. She nodded. Hours passed. Then Detective Carla Monroe arrived. Plain clothes, sharp eyes, the kind of woman who's seen it all but still listens carefully. Elena recounted everything. The residue in the glass, the recordings, the bottle in the trash, the phone calls at night. Her voice wavered, but she held her ground. Detective Monroe remained quiet for a long time after Eleanor finished. Then finally, "We'll test the bottle and the juice. If it matches, this won't go away quietly." Back at home, Travis paced the kitchen like a caged animal. When Eleanor returned that evening, he was waiting in the living room, his face the picture of cold, legal fury. "You want to ruin me," he hissed. "You know what happens if you do this. I'll make sure they call you unstable. You haven't worked in years, you've got no friends, no family. I've got a lawyer on speed dial." "You already ruined yourself," Elena said softly. He stepped closer. "You think anyone will believe you over me? I think they already do." He laughed, sharp, ugly. "You don't get it. You're nothing without me." Eleanor's reply was a whisper, but it stopped him cold. "Then why am I still standing? And Rachel isn't." The next day, Rachel woke up, groggy, weak, but alive. Eleanor sat by her bedside, quiet. Rachel looked at her with heavy eyes. Was it the juice?" Eleanor nodded slowly. There was a long pause before Rachel spoke again. "He called me that morning. Told me not to skip breakfast. Eleanor blinked. Rachel looked up at the ceiling. Travis never called me in the morning. Never cared when I ate or where I was. That morning, he wanted me at that table. She closed her eyes. I think he meant it for you. Tears welled in Elena's eyes. Not from fear, but from the unbearable weight of being believed. For so long she had been gaslit, dismissed, silenced. But now, finally, someone heard her. I thought I was crazy, Elena whispered. That I imagined everything. Rachel reached out, her hand weak but steady. You're not crazy. He is. They sat in silence for a long moment. Then Eleanor spoke again, her voice breaking. He made me believe I was nothing. He told me if I left, no one would want me, that the world would swallow me whole. Rachel gave a tired smile. The world nearly swallowed me today, and I think you saved me. It was the first time in years Eleanor felt something shift. Not everything was healed, not yet, but something had cracked in the wall she'd built. Rain again, as if the sky knew it was time for reckoning. Detective Monroe stood in Eleanor's living room, holding a slim manila envelope. She didn't sit, she didn't smile, just opened the flap and pulled out a printed sheet. Tetrahydroharmine, she said flatly. It was in the juice. Elena's breath caught. It's a sedative, not easy to find, untraceable in most hospitals, but black market suppliers sell it to shady clinics running end-of-life trials. It slows everything, heart rate, breathing. Eventually, it just stops you, painless, efficient. Rachel, still pale but stronger, sat on the couch, jaw tight. Why would he use something like that? She asked. Monroe's eyes shifted to Eleanor. Because he didn't want it to look like murder. He wanted it to look like you just stopped existing. Eleanor reached into the small drawer under the TV stand and handed Monroe a tiny black memory card. Hidden camera, she said, in the kitchen light fixture. Monroe raised a brow, but took it without question. Later that day, Monroe returned. This time her posture had changed, alert, focused. We reviewed your footage, she said to Eleanor. Clear as day. He pours a liquid into your glass while checking over his shoulder. We also saw something else. A week ago, he swapped your vitamin bottles with ones from his briefcase. Lab's analyzing those now. Rachel was quiet for a long time. Then, so it's real. All of it. Monroe nodded. They didn't wait for Travis to come home. They prepared instead. Eleanor sat in her usual chair at the breakfast bar, calm. Her face held none of the fear that once haunted her. Rachel stood beside the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, her nursing bag nearby. The front door opened just after 6. Travis walked in, whistling, loosened his jacket. Well, everyone's home. Good. We can finally talk. He strutted toward the kitchen, but stopped when he saw them both waiting. Something in Rachel's face gave him pause. I know what this looks like, he said. But you're twisting things. He jabbed a finger at Eleanor, is setting me up. Rachel drank the wrong glass. That's not my fault. No, Eleanor said. You're right. It's not your fault she drank it, but it's absolutely your fault that you poisoned it. You have no idea what you're talking about, Travis snapped. Rachel stepped forward. I remember the call, Travis. You wanted me at breakfast. You made sure I didn't leave early. You meant for Elena to drink that juice. Travis's eyes darted between them. This is ridiculous. Eleanor pulled out her phone, opened her voice memos, and hit play. The room filled with Travis's own voice. Rough, careless, tired. She's getting suspicious. I'll do it tomorrow. Breakfast. Juice. Silence. Travis's mouth opened, then shut. His hand twitched. He lunged, straight toward Eleanor, but Rachel was faster. She reached into her bag, pulled out a slim pink stun gun, a nurse's self-defense tool she kept for late shifts, and pressed it to his ribs. The shock dropped him instantly. He groaned, convulsed slightly on the floor. Sirens wailed outside just seconds later. Detective Monroe entered with 2 officers. Stand back. The officers cuffed him while Monroe read him his rights. Travis didn't fight. His eyes were blank now, like he'd been scooped hollow. Travis Quinn, she said, you're under arrest for attempted murder, reckless endangerment, and possession of a controlled substance. Eleanor watched him being hauled away. Rachel stood beside her, breathing hard. It was over. Not just the attack, not just the manipulation, but the years of being silenced, erased, doubted. It was finally over. The courtroom was cold, sterile, yet Eleanor felt strangely calm. No more shaking hands, no more biting her lip until it bled. As she stepped up to the witness stand, She locked eyes with Travis for the first time in weeks. He looked smaller now, thinner, powerless. "I was scared," Eleanor said, voice steady, "but not of dying. I was scared no one would believe me, that I'd be erased in silence." She spoke of the bruises, the slow unraveling of her independence, the years of emotional sabotage. She described how Travis manipulated her into quitting her job, cutting off her friends, second-guessing her own instincts, and then she told them about the juice. Rachel testified next. She didn't hold back either. She described the phone call that morning, how odd it was that Travis asked her to stay for breakfast, how dizzy she felt within minutes of drinking, and how, as a nurse, she knew that wasn't food poisoning. The prosecution built a solid case between the hidden footage, the voice recording, the poison analysis, and the testimony. It became undeniable. Travis had planned Elena's death, and he'd nearly killed his own sister trying to do it. When the verdict came down, and guilty on all counts, Elena didn't cry. She just breathed, and for the first time in years, that breath felt like her own. Travis's business collapsed. News of the trial exposed not only the attempted murder, but a trail of deception, forged documents, unpaid subcontractors, fraudulent insurance claims. His name became toxic in every construction circle across the state. Meanwhile, Eleanor moved out of the big house she once called home. She rented a modest 2-bedroom apartment near a local elementary school. It was small, sunlit, and quiet. For the first few nights, the silence felt eerie, but then it became comforting. She returned to teaching part-time. Slowly, gently, the children reminded her what steady love looked like, what purpose felt like. She began therapy, the kind that didn't just make you talk, but forced you to rebuild piece by piece. Rachel visited often, sometimes bringing takeout, sometimes just tea. They no longer talked about Travis, not because they avoided it, but because he wasn't the centerpiece anymore. "He doesn't get to define us," Rachel said one night, stirring sugar into her cup. "He never did." They laughed more, cooked on weekends, started a book club with a few other women from the neighborhood, and over time they became not just survivors, but a kind of family, not by blood, but by choice. Elena still had moments when she double-checked the door lock too many times, or froze at the sound of a phone ringing late at night, but they passed, and when they did, they left something behind: strength, the kind born from walking through hell and coming out not unburnt, but still walking, still alive, still her. The classroom buzzed with the quiet energy of young minds. Elena moved between desks, asking questions, encouraging hesitant voices. Her students were working on essays about resilience, what it meant to fall and get back up. In the front row, a little girl named Maya raised her hand, bright-eyed, curious, a little too quiet sometimes, just like Eleanor used to be. "Miss Elena, can I write about my mom?" Maya asked. "She's really strong." Eleanor's chest ached in the softest way. She nodded. "That sounds perfect." The bell rang. The kids poured out with backpacks bouncing and laughter trailing. Elena gathered her papers when the school secretary stepped in. "Letter came for you." It was hand-addressed. Neat, familiar handwriting. Rachel. Elena opened it carefully, her fingers trembling just slightly, not with fear, but reverence. "Dear Elena, it's been a year since everything changed. I still think about that morning, about what could have happened, and what did. But more than that, I think about what you did next. You didn't run. You didn't break. You didn't just survive. You turned the wreckage into something strong, real. I started volunteering with survivors, women who've been made small, told they were crazy, made to doubt the truth inside them. And I tell them your story. He tried to kill something in both of us, but you turned it into fire. You lived. You got your voice back. That's your victory. Love, Rachel." Eleanor folded the letter slowly, pressing it to her chest for a moment. The late afternoon sun poured through the window, warming her shoulders. The hum of children down the hall, the scent of dry erase markers and old paper. It was all ordinary, and it was everything. She stood a little taller as she locked the classroom door behind her. She didn't just survive, she won. Hi besties, thank you so much for watching to the end. Please remember to like, comment and subscribe.